Welcome to the Deep Dive. You asked, we dug, and today we're unearthing the story of a true titan, the Dinosaur Argyrosaurus.
That's right.
We've got the scientific papers, the fossil records, the whole 9 yards, and our mission is simple. Bring you the most fascinating insights about this giant. It once roamed what we now know as Argentina.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's get into it.
Yeah, and what's fascinating is that even the name Argyrosaurus offers a clue.
Oh.
Well, from Greek, it translates to silver lizard, which is a direct link to Argentina, meaning land of silver, where it was found.
Ah, okay. Silver lizard, silver land. Makes sense.
Exactly. And then there's the species name, Superbus. That's Latin for proud.
Proud silver lizard from Argentina. I like it.
So in a way, yeah, that's what we're talking about.
That paints a great picture right away.
Yeah.
And it was Richard Lydecker who officially described Argyrosaurus superbus back in 1893.
That's the one. His description was based on this really incredible find, a massive left forelimb.
Found where exactly?
At Chico River in Argentina, it's cataloged as MLP 77V291.
A massive forelimb. What exactly did that pivotal fossil include? What bones are we talking about?
Well, this holotype specimen is remarkably informative. It includes the humerus, that's the upper arm bone,
Right.
along with the ulna and radius, the 2 forearm bones, and all 5 metacarpals, so the ham bones.
All 5. Wow. Just imagine the sheer scale of a forearm and hand that complete.
It really puts the size into perspective, doesn't it?
It really does. Now, the initial understanding of when this creature lived, that's been refined over time, hasn't it?
Yes, absolutely. The original geological dating placed the find in the Campanian-Maastrichtian age. That's late in the age of dinosaurs.
Okay.
But more recent analysis of the rock layers suggests it's probably more like late Maastrichtian.
So pushing it a bit later.
Right, putting Argyrosaurus at around, say, 70 million years ago. Still late Cretaceous, though.
Got it. So this impressive forelimb wasn't found completely alone, was it? I thought there was a hint of a more complete skeleton initially.
That's right, yeah. The circumstances of the discovery, they initially suggested the forelimb was part of a much larger, maybe even complete skeleton.
Oh, wow. So what happened?
Well, sadly, during the excavation itself, those other remains were apparently destroyed. Lost.
Oh, no.
Yeah, a real setback for understanding this creature, obviously.
That's always a bit of a heartbreaker in paleontology, isn't it? Losing material like that.
It really is.
But Lydecker's work in 1893 didn't just stop with the holotype, did it? He assigned other bits and pieces in that same paper.
He did, yes. He included a partial left femur, MLP-21 from Chubut province, and also the main body part of tail vertebrae, MLP-22, from Santa Cruz province.
Okay.
But interestingly, Lydecker didn't really give a clear reason for assigning that femur, MLP-21, to Argyrosaurus.
Is that common for back then? Just assigning things without detailed reasoning?
That's a great question. It sort of highlights how early paleontology sometimes worked. Without the really rigorous comparative methods we have today, assignments could be a bit more impressionistic, based on general similarity or just being found nearby.
Right. Makes sense for the time. So after those initial finds, what other pieces have kind of been added to the Argyrosaurus puzzle over the years?
Well, over the following decades, quite a variety of other bones were found and at different times attributed to Argyrosaurus.
Like what sort of bones?
Mostly other limb bones, a clavicle, the collarbone, a pubic bone, and more tail vertebrae.
Okay.
So while we lost that potential complete skeleton early on, we have gathered these scattered remains that sort of hint at the bigger picture.
Can you give us a feel for some of these later discoveries?
Yeah.
Like where they were found, maybe any museum numbers?
Sure. Let's see. There's a caudal centrum, so a tail vertebra body from Chubut province. It's known as DGM, but the specific number isn't readily available, unfortunately. Then there are 3 more caudal centra, MACN 5205 from Santa Cruz province, a right femur, MLP-27, turned up in Nucan province.
Right.
And then there's this really huge right femur, FMNH 13018, over 2 meters long.
6.5 feet. Just the femur.
Yeah, enormous. That one's from Chubut province. We also have a smaller right humerus, MACN 5007 from Nucan province, and even finds in Uruguay a partial humerus, radius, and a rib fragment, MMAB something, again, number unknown.
Uruguay too, so they had quite a range.
Seems like it, yeah. Suggests these animals were spread across a pretty considerable area.
It's amazing to think of these giants roaming across such vast distances.
Yeah.
Now the story gets a bit more tangled when we talk about fossils initially linked to a different dinosaur, right?
Exactly, that happens quite a bit in paleo.
Right.
So there's complete right femur, FMNH 13019, and a left tibia, FMNH 13020, both from Schubert. Originally, back in 1929, Friedrich von Quine identified them as belonging to Antarctosaurus.
Ah, another famous titanosaur.
Right. But then, much later, in 2003, paleontologist Jaime Eduardo Powell took another look. He proposed a more tentative classification, calling them CF Argyrosaurus.
CF, what does that mean again?
The CF basically means compare with. It's like putting a maybe or looks like in front of the name. It suggests the fossils resemble Argyrosaurus, but we can't be entirely certain without more evidence.
Okay, so like a scientific question mark attached. It's a constant process of reevaluation then.
Absolutely. As we find more clues, things get shifted around.
What about that partial skeleton, the one found in the late 70s?
Ah, yes. TLV 4628 MACN CH217. In 1979, José Bonaparte and Zuma Gasparini assigned that partial skeleton, also from Chubut province, to Argyrosaurus.
And that was more substantial.
Yeah, it was. Included limb bones, several vertebrae, offered a more complete picture of, a single individual potentially. So we were starting to feel like we were getting a better handle on its overall form.
It sounds like the picture was becoming clearer, but then more recently someone took a really hard look and kind of narrowed things down again, didn't they?
Precisely. Like a detective revisiting old evidence.
Yeah.
The 2012 assessment by Philip Mannion and Alejandro Otero was a really significant reevaluation.
And what did they find?
Well, they argued pretty strongly that the original holotype forelimb, MLP 77V291, is the only fossil material that can be confidently, unambiguously assigned to the genus Argyrosaurus.
Only the forelimb. After all those other finds, wow. That's a big conclusion.
It is pretty significant, yeah.
What was their reasoning? Why discount all the other material?
Well, their reasoning was quite rigorous. They pointed out, first, that many of the other fossils referred to Argyrosaurus just don't overlap with the holotype.
Meaning they're different bones.
Exactly. If you don't have another humerus or ulna to directly compare to the original ones, it's very difficult to be certain they belong to the same species, right?
You need that direct comparison.
Plus, they noted that some of the later finds actually lack the specific distinguishing features seen in that original forelimb. And maybe most crucially, a lot of the older descriptions and illustrations, well, they just aren't detailed enough by modern standards. It makes it really hard to confidently reassign things without going back and physically restudying every single fossil.
Which takes a lot of time and resources, I imagine.
Absolutely. So it's a combination of things. Lack of comparable bones, missing key features, and sometimes inadequate documentation from the past.
So what happened to all those other bits and pieces? The femur, the vertebrae, that partial skeleton. What are they now?
Mannion and Otero basically concluded that most of those other referred specimens should just be considered indeterminate titanosaurs.
Meaning, they're titanosaurs, but we can't pin them down to Argyrosaurus specifically.
Exactly. They belong to that big group, but we can't confidently assign them to a specific genus like Argyrosaurus.
What about that partial skeleton? PLV 4628, the one that seems so promising.
That one actually got a promotion, in a way. They determined it belonged to an entirely new genus altogether.
Really?
Yeah, they named it Elaltitan.
Elaltitan. Okay, so it highlights how our understanding just keeps evolving. What we thought was one thing turns out to be something else entirely.
Precisely. It really underscores the dynamic nature of paleontology. It's this constant process of revision and refinement as new data comes in, or we just look at old finds with fresh eyes and new techniques.
Fascinating. Okay, let's shift gears a bit to the physical characteristics. What do we actually know about the size of Argyrosaurus? It sounds like there might be some debate there.
That's absolutely right. Estimating the size of these extinct giants, especially from incomplete fossils, well, it always involves some degree of interpretation and, frankly, uncertainty.
So what are some of the numbers people have thrown around?
Okay, so in 2010, Gregory Paul estimated Argyrosaurus reached about 17 meters, maybe 56 feet long, and weighed up to 12 tons.
Okay, 17 meters, 12 tons. Still huge.
Definitely. But then, just a couple of years later, 2012, Thomas Holtz proposed a much larger size. He suggested a length of 28 meters, that's 92 feet, and a weight somewhere between 43.5 and maybe 50.8 tons.
Whoa, from 17 meters to 28. That's an enormous difference. Nearly double the length and way more than double the weight.
It's a huge range, yeah. And then, more recently, 2020, Melina Perez and Laura Mendy offered an intermediate estimate. 21 meters long, about 69 feet and 26 tons.
Okay, so 17, 28, 21 meters. What accounts for such wildly different interpretations? Is it mostly because the only definite material is that one forelimb?
That's the core of it, yes. Because the holotype is just a foursome, researchers have to use different scaling methods. They make assumptions based on comparisons with other titanosaurs that might be more complete, but maybe aren't that closely related.
So different assumptions lead to different results.
Exactly. And whether or not you include some of those larger but now questionable referred bones in your calculations, that also drastically changes the final estimate.
Right. The more complete the fossil, the better the estimate, generally.
So-
That makes perfect sense. So even with this ongoing size debate, did Mannion and Otero's 2012 study identify any unique features in that holotype forelimb? Things that help distinguish Argyrosaurus, even if it's just from the arm?
Yes, they did. Despite concluding only the holotype definitely belongs to Argyrosaurus,
Wow.
they pinpointed several unique characteristics or autapomorphies within that forelimb.
Like what?
Okay, one notable feature is a wide ridge that projects forward on the medial, that's the inner side of the humerus.
A ridge on the upper arm bone. Okay.
They also observed that the mid-shaft of the humerus is extremely compressed, meaning it was quite flattened from front to back.
Flattened humerus.
Yeah. And they found that the distal end, the far end of the radius, one of the forearm bones, is only slightly wider than its mid-shaft width. That's an unusual proportion.
Okay.
Also, the radius has a kind of subtriangular shape when you look at it from the end, the distal view.
Right.
And finally, they highlighted that the metacarpals, those hand bones we mentioned, are exceptionally elongated, very long finger bones leading up to the wrist.
So even from just one limb, there are these specific diagnostic features: a forward ridge, compressed humerus shaft, narrow radius end, triangular radius shape, long hand bones.
Exactly. Those give us concrete anatomical markers, even if the rest of the skeleton is uncertain.
Okay. So while we might not have the full picture, we have these definite ID points for Argyrosaurus. And just to recap for everyone listening, this proud silver lizard lived approximately 70 million years ago, late Cretaceous period, and all the currently undisputed fossils are from Argentina.
That's a perfect summary of where we stand right now.
So wrapping up this deep dive into Argyrosaurus, we've covered quite a bit. Its Argentinian roots, the somewhat frustratingly fragmented nature of the fossil evidence beyond that amazing original forelimb, and this ongoing scientific discussion about its true size and whether other fossils really belong to it. But we also have those very distinct skeletal features from the holotype forelimb.
Right. Those unique traits are key.
It really showcases how our knowledge, even of these massive prehistoric animals, can shift and evolve. You know, new discoveries pop up, old finds get a second look.
Absolutely. And maybe it raises a fascinating point for you, the listener, to think about: what does it tell us about how science works when an animal, potentially as huge as Argyrosaurus is known, really definitively only from a single limb?
Yeah.
It really highlights the challenges, but also, I think, the excitement of piecing together the deep past from, often very incomplete clues and that constant refinement that really characterizes paleontology.
Definitely makes you wonder what other secrets might still be buried in Argentina. Secrets that could completely reshape how we see Argyrosaurus in the world it walked in.
Exactly. There's always more to discover.